Welcome to the No Mongo Podcast, a weekly show about all things skateboarding. My name is Rick Beta, and today I've got a Bay Area skateboarder / tattoo artist, Ben McQueen, and we're going to talk a little bit about his life and his upcoming book. So I'm very excited to chat with you, Ben. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, appreciate it. So just a quick, I'll bring it back, to the beginnings, right? The early days. So you started skateboarding around 10 or 11, got into tattooing around 19 or so, and you worked in a skate shop and tattoo shop pretty much from then on, right? But my main question is, are you like one of the lucky few that never had to hold down a 9 to 5?
Man, aside from working at Starbucks, I worked at a Journey shoe store at the mall as well. But yeah, I really haven't had to sit at a desk or be chained to a desk or anything. I mean, working on this book has been the most I've been chained to a desk at all. So I've been really lucky in that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know you did a lot of traveling for that too, and we'll get into that as well. So what or who got you into skateboarding originally?
It was a good friend of mine. His name was Colin. I grew up with him all through elementary school, and we ended up spending a lot of time together after school. And I went to his house one day, and we both grew up in Indiana. And in the Midwest, we have a lot of unfinished basements. It's pretty normal for people to have just a concrete slab floor with nothing else down there except Christmas lights and all that stuff. So we would go down to his basement and he had a skateboard down there, and we just started kind of messing around on it. And I really enjoyed it. So I ended up getting a board of my own and kind of flocked to the other skateboarders that I knew that were at my school. We started meeting up every day after school in a church parking lot and just learning to grind curves and ollie 3 or 4 stairs. And it just took off from there. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So what are you riding these days? What's your setup?
I've been skating a size 8 board for as long as I can remember. I usually skate FTC shop boards right now from here in the city, but I can kind of make anything work, I suppose. I try not to be too addicted to my setup aside from the size of the board, but yeah, man, that's what I've been skating.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. 8.1 at the moment, but I have a couple 8s behind me over here.
Yeah.
I feel it's like, I don't know, people say it's no big difference, but when I went up to an 8.2, it felt like a boat to me, So I'm like,
totally,
yeah. I'm not used to it, so I stick with what I like and stick with what I know.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what type of skating I'm doing too. Obviously, if I'm just going to go to the park and kind of carve around, I might skate a wider board or a bigger board or a filming board or whatever, So I'm adaptable, I suppose.
Yeah, that's good. And I know almost everyone kind of remembers their first kickflip, except for me and maybe Kyle Beachy. But I'm going to go ahead and assume that you definitely remember giving your first tattoo, right?
Oh, 100%. You'll never forget it.
I mean, how is that? I mean, I try to think because, I draw, but I can't imagine how it is like drawing on someone's skin that's going to make it's something permanent, for that first time. How was that? Can you speak a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I spent so much time talking about and preparing for the first one, and all you're doing is trying to learn and absorb and sponge up as much information as you can around the shop, that by the time the first tattoo rolls around, I think you're anxious because you haven't tattooed yet. So you're anxious to get one done. But yeah, man, I mean, everything you thought you knew is completely gone. The cold sweats start immediately. As soon as you start tattooing, it feels like you don't know. I mean, you don't know what you're doing for the most part, but yeah, I definitely remember the first one. I was living in Chicago at the time. So I was calling in a bunch of friends. I was like, hey, listen, I need a favor. If you got a little spot on your leg, I can tattoo a skull on you or something. So it's a lot of calling in favors and just crossing your fingers. And a lot of it is just trying to pick a design that is not too complicated or out of your league. A lot of skulls and a lot of band logos and graphics and things like that, just to keep it, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew,
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I was checking your Instagram. You did the Powell. What's the guy's name? I always forget his name. The
Skull Ripper Powell.
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
you got to do that finally. It looked awesome, dude.
Man, I was pumped. It was weird. I'd never done it. I'd seen that tattoo. I mean, I follow the Powell page, and they post a lot of those tattoos. And I started tattooing a guy in town. We started talking about skateboarding, and he was like, "Man, I'd love to get any of those old." Skate logos on me at some point if you're interested. He wants to do like the Santa Cruz Screaming Hand and the Powell Ripper and all that. So he was pumped to get it. I was excited to do it. So, I mean, that for me is like the best of both worlds, right? If I can tattoo a skate logo and talk about skateboarding and get to tattoo at the same time, it's the best, you know?
Yeah. And I'm sure like sharing it on your page is going to get more people to go like, oh, I want that, you know, and then you're going to probably end up doing it more often, I'm assuming, right?
Totally. I mean, that would be, you know, I want to try to be able to offer just about anything, but, you know, I tattoo a ton of skateboarders in the city, which is great. So even if I'm not tattooing a PAL logo or whatever, we're still probably talking about skating and geeking out on whatever videos out or, you know, Thrasher, whatever it is, you know, but getting to tattoo that thing was a blast for sure.
That's cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's shift your book now. It's called Let It Kill You, which is described as a Thrasher style skate interview and an upscale art book. So I guess first off, how'd you come up with the name for the book?
Well, I think, you know, it's based on the Bukowski quote, find what you love and let it kill you. And, you know, I think with tattooing and skateboarding, they're so similar in the way that we invest ourselves into these things. They become so much of our personality that we don't really know how to exist outside of them. Sometimes we find ourselves hanging out with different types of groups of people and you feel a little bit lost or, you know, so I think for me, it's always been the pain coupled with skateboarding. My body's pretty broken at this point over the years of just slamming over and over. And, you know, tattooing is certainly not kind on your back or your arms or your hands. It's just like living in this uncomfortable body all the time, but, you know, not wanting it any other way, you know? So I watched that Until the Wheels Fall Off Tony Hawk documentary and listening to Lance Mountain talk at the end there about, you know, just dying for skateboarding and things, you know, it's a heavy thing that I think you can only explain to another tattooer or another skateboarder. It's I don't know too many things that people are willing to put their bodies on the line for like this. So ultimately that's what led me to the title of the book for sure.
Yeah, no, I like it. And just to piggyback on that Lance Mountain thing, yeah, I watched that documentary too. And that I got like emotional when Lance was talking about that. Like he was just talking about the CTE aspect of it and how he's just so messed up and it's too late to turn back now and this and that. But and it's true. It's literally he's gonna let it kill him, but he loves it and he's still doing it, much like Hawk and all the other guys. And it was crazy.
Yeah, it's man, that documentary was, I think it had a lot of skateboarders tearing up. You know, that it was heavy. I could listen to Lance and Rodney and all of them talk for forever, you know.
Yeah, they need their own documentaries just
I know.
themselves. You know, they
I think a lot
it.
of people felt that way for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, they've earned it. They've earned it. So, and in the book too, I mean, so was this something that was kind of spawned, you know, during the pandemic, or maybe was it even something like, because I know you had another book too, Night of the Sun. Was there momentum off of that book, or how did this come about?
Yeah, so I've had an idea for this for a while. It wasn't fully, you know, hadn't fully taken its form. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I've always been really attracted to books because they just feel so timeless. And, you know, as a tattooer, books are a really important part of my job. So I've always been addicted to collecting Thrasher magazines and skate magazines and everything else. So I just love books in general. And so, yeah, during COVID, I was out of work in San Francisco. You know, we were shut down for like a total of almost 9 months. You know, tattoo shops were closed. So I had a lot of downtime. I was painting a lot. I was skating a lot. And I just slowly, gears started turning and I started trying to make some moves and figure out if this was something that I could pull off. And of course, you know, I started reaching out to people. I reached out to Eric Dressen really early on, and he was really pumped on the idea and, you know, trying to find a way to sort of tell the story of skateboarding and tattooing and where they meet through the experiences of skateboarders that have become tattooers or tattooers that found tattooing through skateboarding, you know. So there was a very niche specific place that I wanted to get to via the form of a book, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I love the simplicity of the cover. I wanted to point that out, you know, because
Thank you.
It kind of, I mean, I'm just thinking like just someone who's not even into tattoo or art or even skateboarding, it just is going to spark some curiosity for someone to pick it up and grab it. Like, what is this, you know? But
yeah.
I also noted too on my notes, like, you know, speaking of the cover, you know, much like in your profession, did you draw that skull in like your first attempt?
Man, you would think if it was a tattoo, I probably would have done it first try, but I drew it over and over and over and I bounced it off. I'm doing this book with two other guys, my kind of partners in the book, Brandon Burdine and Andy Eklov, and we have like a Slack chat and I kept drawing skulls and putting them in there. And I think because I knew it was for something different than a tattoo, I chewed it up and spit it out multiple times, redrew it 1,000 times until we finally got one that we were happy with. But it was so different drawing for something that was going to be the face of this, you know, passion project that I had going on. So I think I was extra critical of it, but we're really happy with where it landed. We wanted it to feel a little imperfect and sort of sketchy, and 80s skateboard graphic meets tattoo image kind of. So yeah, we're pumped on where it landed. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Like I said, I like the simplicity of it. It's just, and it gets, it gets your curiosity going. And, but one thing, I mean, I haven't physically seen the book in the pictures. One thing I noticed too is that it's a hardcover book. Was that an
Yeah.
easy decision for you? Was it always going to be hardback all along?
I mean, we wanted it to be, just because I wanted it to feel classy, and something about a hardcover book and the way it sits on your shelf and the way it ages, that was the goal. But of course, this was different than the first little book I put out, dealing with the supply chain issues and paper shortages and all that stuff. Now it was night and day different with what we were going to be able to basically pull off. So I didn't realize, that it was going to be so hard to get these things. So once I figured out we wanted it to be hardcover and I had accessibility to getting that done, I wanted to go for it. But we definitely toyed around with, like, should it be soft cover? Does it matter? Blah, blah, blah. But we landed on hardcover and it was perfect. So
yeah, no, I mean, I prefer it too. And I mentioned that because, Primitive, I don't know if you watched their video Define yet. It came out.
Oh yeah.
So that was a great video. And I think they had a photo book to complement it. And I looked it up. I think it was like $50 or something, but it was a soft cover. I'm like, oh man, if that was a hardcover, I'd be buying it like right away. So I don't know. It makes a big difference for me, and so that's why I had to ask, because I mean, I think it looks better. And like you said, even when they're sitting on the bookshelf too, they're not going to be like kind of sagging, and it's going to be more, uniform.
Yeah, we even with collecting Thrashers and stuff, I want it to look a certain way on your bookshelf. If you're missing one of them, because we're going to do multiple volumes of this. So if you're missing one, it makes you want to go get one. Maybe they're each a different color. We haven't fully, figured out exactly what we're going to do next, but yeah, having it be hardcover and we want people to pick it up. We want people to be incentivized and to say, this looks interesting. What is this? Even if you're not a skateboarder or a tattooer, if it breaks that third wall and then, other people are into the book, then great, so.
That's true. And you mentioned a good thing I didn't even think about, like, as far as like a creator or creating a book, do you keep it the same color or not? That's a very good, I never even thought about something like that. That's a tough decision.
Yeah, I met with early on in the process, I met with Andy Pitts, who's one of the big art directors over at Deluxe. And he had the idea of, he was like, what if the book was like, volume 1 is red and then 2 is yellow, and you sort of like work your way down the line. It's gonna make you want that book that you're missing, for the sake of how it looks on your bookshelf. And I've thought about that ever since he told me, and it's a great idea. So I think we're gonna take it. So
yeah, that's cool. So, and one thing I've noticed too is like seeing some of the pictures of like your interviews. I just want to give you props. A huge shout out to how professional your audio setup looks, dude. I mean, you're not messing around, right?
Yeah. I had no clue what I was doing. I started looking into like how to do it. And, I bought a VX actually that I haven't owned one of those in years, but I bought one. Originally, I thought, maybe we'll record these, put a camera up in the room or something. But I started talking to people and they were like, as soon as you put a camera in people's faces, sometimes you get a different result. Yeah. So I thought, well, maybe we have something like, some sort of recording device that we just set on the table. Honestly, I just basically got a podcast set up, more or less.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes people think it's a podcast, which is fine. But, for all intents and purposes, we're recording it like that. So we have the audio if we ever want to do anything with it. But yeah, then we just take it home and we pull the audio and transcribe it. And you got to comb through and trim the fat. And, there's a lot of stuff that we end up not using, but just editing it from there. But yeah, that was the idea for sure.
Yeah, no, I like that. And like, most people, like you said, they'll just plop out their, smartphone and put the voice memo and just record it and transcribe it because that's what you're doing anyway. But I think, like you said, it makes the project seem very professional, and which would also be, more, like you said, more relaxing for the guests. It's not it's like you're on a movie set, and less pressure, So I had to point that out. I noticed that it looked very.
Man, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been, it took a lot of work and also just learning to interview people, and it was definitely. I started with Tyler Bledsoe and Cheyenne Sawyer in Portland, and we did a little 3-way interview. And I think I learned a lot from that one, and just kind of taking a little bit away from each interview. We usually recorded about 2 hours, and the interviews ended up being a little over 30 pages each, So, and then I recorded in Barcelona with Hanno Navarrete, and, we recorded there, and it was ended up being a lot shorter because of the language barrier. You know, we had a translator and stuff, but we're really happy with how everything turned out. I think it looks great. I'm excited for people to check it out.
That's good. So do you have some footage, video footage as well, or is it just audio?
We shot some Super 8 footage. That's kind of all the video footage that we did. When we just did that, I love Super 8. I love the way it looks. And I think we're going to probably piece together a couple little things. We've done a few little teaser things on the Instagram page, but we want to try to put together something at the end, maybe for the book release party that we sort of loop, you know, on a screen or something. So we got a lot of footage, and we figured the more we had content wise, you know, the better. So that way we can decide if we want to do something with it moving forward. But
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, even if you want to make like a kind of like a teaser trailer or something just to hype it up, you know, and just get
I just wanted to record and shoot as much as I could, you know, just so I had the option to use that stuff for sure.
Yeah. And you mentioned one key thing I've noticed too is why was it so like important to do these interviews in person? I noticed that.
Yeah, you know, foremost, the easiest answer is because it just meant so much to me that I wanted to do people the service of like, hey, let me come to you. Let's get in your element, make sure you're comfortable. We'll sit down at your tattoo shop or your skate shop, or, you know, we recorded Jamie Thomas at Zero and, you know, all these places. So I just wanted people to feel comfortable. I didn't want to, you know, ask people for too much. I said, I'll just come to you. And I love to travel. I've traveled a lot for skating and tattooing both. So it's easy enough for me to jump on a plane. But I also like, you know, I feel like when you read an interview, sometimes whether it's in Thrasher or whether it's, you know, in any other publication, I can feel it when they're not together. You know, I can feel the stiffness of an interview. If it's like, I'll send you the questions and you send me the answers.
Oh yeah.
You know, first of all, it just takes forever to hear back from people, and I just wanted to get it going. But also, I just wanted it to feel like a real conversation. I wanted it to be fluid. I wanted to have a chance to ask someone to embellish, you know, more of what, you know, tell me more about that thing, you know, as opposed to just leaving it cut and dry, almost like a cliffhanger, you know?
Yeah.
So that was the goal. And I think I'm glad that I did it that way, you know?
Yeah, no, it's true. And I noticed that too in like, you know, just using Thrasher, for example, you could tell which ones were emailed beforehand because a lot of the times the answers sometimes will lead to more questions, but then you don't see those questions being asked. You're like, that was a perfect opportunity to ask about that they just talked about. But they went on to their, you know, their script, so to speak.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So that was huge and important for me. And, you know, plus I just wanted to be able to get the photos during the interviews and things like that. I just felt like it was the book sort of reads like a trip, you know. There are sort of journal entries at the beginning of every interview about the day and how we got there and what happened. And, you know, so it's more unique than just interview. It's got a little flair to it in that way. So that was something that I wanted to be able to pull off, and it felt like going in person. Also just an excuse to go hang out with these people. You know, I hadn't met all of them. So yeah, it was great.
That was going to be my next question. I mean, did you know any of these individuals beforehand? I mean, how many did you know?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I told Jamie I'd met him a few times at demos and stuff when I was a kid, at Fallen demos and Zero demos. And but I knew Nathan Costeco. I knew Cheyenne Sawyer, and I'd met Chad Kelplinger a handful of times. But ultimately, outside of Cheyenne, I didn't know anyone on a real comfortable personal level, which I think kind of was cool. You know, I knew just enough about their story, but to leave me more interested. It made for a better interview because I think I genuinely wanted to know like everything about them. And so in that way, I think it led to a more interesting content for the book for sure. So I didn't really know them, but I was geeked out to meet a lot of them. And yeah, everybody was great, man. We had a blast. And it felt like, I think when skateboarders meet other skateboarders, or tattooers meet other tattooers, or whatever it is, you sort of immediately don't have to like deal with the small talk or the sort of like back and forth. It's like, let's just jump into it and talk about skating, you know?
That's true. But yeah, I wanted to geek out for a moment because, you know, how was it meeting Eric Dressen? I mean, is he as cool and chill as he appears?
Man, he's the best. He was that for me, that was almost like the white whale person for the book, where I was like, man, if I can get Dressen on board, I think I'll have something really special, you know, because I knew that he had started tattooing and that he had been tattooing over the years. And I knew a little bit about his story, but he was like coming up with the idea for the book. I sort of had him in mind for the whole idea of it was like, this guy's perfect, and I've been such a fan of his skating over the years, and his tattooing is great. And so he was the perfect person to start with. So when I got a yes from him, I felt like I had twice the level of confidence and twice the level of, I just knew the book was going to be that much better having him involved. And man, he was the best. He was so hospitable. And I was driving down to Venice to interview him, and he called me on the phone, and I was like, hey, what's up, man? And he's like, totally forgot that I'm supposed to judge this skate contest. And I forget where it was. Maybe it doesn't matter either way, somewhere else. And I was like, oh man, I'm halfway down there, and I'm like, okay, like I'm flying my guys out to that area as well, so we can all meet and do this. And he was like, but you know what, my agreement was to you, and I'm more excited, I'm excited for this book, and it's really important to me that we sit down. I just felt like I wanted to be open with you about what I had going on, but let's do it. I'm going to be there tomorrow morning. He showed up, and right on time, and it was sick, man. His interview is one of my favorites. It's great.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I talk a lot about skaters on this show, obviously. And, I always tag them if I talk or whatever. Maybe I talk about their videos or whatever, 98% of the time, I don't even get like an acknowledgement. I don't expect that. I just say, hey, I chatted about you on this podcast. And he actually reached out. So he obviously listened to the episode I talked about, because it was one of his, I think it was last year. And he was just like, oh, thanks for the kind words or this or that. And I was just geeking out. I'm like, no, thank you for all you've done for skateboarding. I mean, so it was cool just to get for him to take the time just to DM me real quick, say, hey man, thanks for the shout. I'm like,
he's the guy that will do that. I mean, nothing goes unnoticed with him. I think he really understands what he's done for skateboarding, but he's still so humble. And I think his perspective of skateboarding is so unique in the way that he got into it when he got into it. He was as young as he was. He's seen so many different eras and so many different firsts and all this. I mean, Eric is unparalleled, man. He's the best.
Yeah, no, it was cool. I wasn't surprised to hear that from you, but yeah, I was just like, he like you said, he doesn't really know the impact that he's provided for all of us growing up, and just inspiration, and just for him to be a cool dude, not some a-hole, off camera or whatever, But that says a lot, man. It was cool that you got to chat with him and meet with him.
Yeah, I was pumped, man. I was so excited. I didn't want him to be the first interview. I did him maybe third or fourth, because I really wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing before I sat down with him,
Yeah. And you had the proper setup. You were set.
Exactly.
Like, right. Yeah. Gotta have it good for dressing. So, and what I like hearing about, people, of course, I'm talking about just friends or anyone in general, are like the stories like behind the tattoos and stuff like that. I mean, there's always something, right? So, I mean, how does it feel like that you single-handedly are like helping create memorable moments for your clients and that kind of thing? Is that
Yeah, I mean, it's heavy, and it doesn't go unnoticed. I think that there are times when you can get yourself on autopilot and you're just kind of like tagging in and tagging out and doing the tattoo, but every now and then there'll be a client with a story that'll suck you back out and remind you what you're doing, for them. And maybe you're getting them through like a death or a loss, or maybe they've just learned something about themselves and they want to mark themselves with a tattoo to remember it. I mean, it's a heavy job, and you have to be able to be adaptable and to be able to talk to people and to be able to sort of almost be like this pseudo therapist type person for them, and they come to you for, a heavy thing. I mean, that doesn't get much more personal than that, sitting with someone and letting them put a tattoo on you. It's not going anywhere forever. I mean, that's heavy. So I definitely try to not take that for granted, I guess.
Good point. Yeah, that's true. You mentioned keyword therapist. I mean, you're kind of their therapist, because either they're celebrating something or a loss, like you said. I mean, that's true. I mean, because for more often than not, they're coming to you for a reason than just having like ink put on skin. That's a very good point.
Yeah, it's crazy, the stuff that you'll hear. Even sometimes people just talk to help them get through the process, so they'll be talking and talking and talking. Next thing you know, they're like told you their life story, they're getting a divorce, or their kid is sick, or they're losing a parent, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
they just talk to sort of help them through the process. And I listen, and I like to talk just as much as anybody else. So if I can help them in that moment, I try to be able to listen and provide whatever I can.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are usually there for a long time, so might as well, just not just be a quiet. Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean, do you ever like run into like some of your clients? I mean, a lot of them are local, or they fly out to see you, and do you run into a lot of them?
Yeah, I see them a lot, man. A lot of them, thankfully, I have a lot of repeat clients, which is really fun because, you know, the
Mm.
more I see people, the more I get to know you. It almost feels like with tattooing, we just pick up where we left off. You know, they come back in and I'm like, how'd it go? You know, last time I saw you, you were about to do this or that or move or whatever. Like, you know, so it's nice. You get to know these people. And I mean, everybody that I tattoo, I feel it's almost weird at the end going to charge them or something because, I mean, granted, it's my job. I got to take the
Yeah,
money. I got rent to pay, especially in San Francisco. But I feel like I learned so much about people that we become friends, you know, by the end of it. So yeah, people come back and it's great. I see people out and about. Tattoo a lot of skateboarders, so I'll see them at the park. I skate with some of my clients. It's great. Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. And I think it must be so awesome, you know, knowing that you know your clients eventually down the road are going to get asked about their tattoo, and they're gonna name drop you and maybe tell those stories. So I mean, that must be so cool. And it comes with such like a sense of pride knowing people are out there to say, "Oh yeah, Ben McQueen did this one."
It's great. I mean, thankfully, the skateboarding community alone is like paying my bills. You know, these kids are all coming in and getting tattooed, which is great, you know, and it's great for me. And they're really supportive. And I tattoo everybody. I tattoo soccer moms. I tattoo kids that just turned 18 and they're getting their first tattoo. I tattoo
Nice.
people that come back every couple of weeks to get their back work done or whatever. I mean, it's all over the place. You know, I do firsts and lasts and all over. So but they're all fun in their own way, and I'm really stoked to get to tattoo skateboarders. That's always been the best, you know.
Nice. Yeah, I don't have any ink on my skin yet. My wife has a few, and I got a lot of friends that all do. I just haven't. I'm gonna be one of those late bloomers, and there's no reason why. You know, it just I
Yeah, hey,
haven't.
it's all good.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't yet. You know, there's nothing that's been like that resonated with me. Like I want that. You know, so it'll come. I'm just not forcing it. You know.
yeah, man. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with never getting a tattoo. You
Yeah.
know, it's totally individual, up to the individual. If you want to get one, get one. If not, don't get one. You know. So
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. There's no pressure. So
yeah.
regarding the book, so like how I mean, I know you mentioned you traveled too. Like, how far have you traveled so far, even just for this volume, volume one?
So for this book, we've done Portland, Los Angeles, San Diego, Barcelona, and Nashville, Tennessee. So Barcelona was the furthest for
Nice.
sure. But yeah, that was, you know, it was a blast, man. We took a few days and went to all these spots and hung out and, you know, got food and skated and chilled. And it was great, man. Yeah, it was fun. So
And
I
I'm
hadn't been to
sure,
Barcelona. So that was huge. Obviously for skating, I was really geeked out to get to go and look at all these spots I've been seeing over the years. And it was a blast, man.
yeah, it's on my bucket list too. I haven't been, but yeah, that's awesome. Being able to combine, you know, the best of both worlds for you right there.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah.
It's like, yeah. What was I gonna say? So yeah, so you travel and then yeah, I totally blanked what I was gonna say. You said something there. Maybe I'll come back to it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so regarding like this current volume, so you've heard a lot of great stories, you know, and you actually, yeah, here's what it came back to me. So you mentioned therapy, you know, being a therapist. You know, of all these stories that you've heard from these legends, I mean, do you think in hindsight now that's all? I mean, because the book's done, right? You're just kind of waiting for you know
Yeah.
supply chain. So do you think that it has the possibility to maybe connect with some people on a different level than maybe you had imagined after you heard all these stories?
I mean, I don't see how it couldn't, you know. I think that for me personally, I think the most moving part of the whole process was talking to these people that I've idolized, whether it's through tattooing or skateboarding my whole life, and realizing that, you know, we're not so different, you know. And I
Mm,
think sometimes we have the ability to put these people on a pedestal, and, you know, rightfully so, but to realize that, you know, I had the same experiences feeling lost or displaced or something as a young skateboarder in school, high school, whatever, as Jamie Thomas
mm.
or Eric Dressen or whoever, like that we all go through these things um, the same way. So I think for me, it was really moving to be able to sort of listen to them tell their story and be like, man, I felt super alone in those moments. You know, I thought I was the only kid in the world that felt the way I felt, but to talk to them and to find out that that's not the case was huge. So I think other people picking up the book could easily read that and discover that in the same way. You know, maybe it'll get someone pumped up to learn how to tattoo or pursue an apprenticeship or pick up a skateboard or whatever it is. You know, I think for the coolest thing for me is talking to kids that grew up skateboarding and left it, because they, life happens. Maybe you have kids or a family, or you start a job, and finding skateboarding again later in your life when you've walked away from it for a while and realizing that it was just there for you the whole time is awesome. And maybe it'll push someone to go buy another board or something, we'll see.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking, like maybe it's someone that's just starting out, or maybe they're too scared to kind of make the leap and buy the equipment to get going, or maybe they're, like you said, and they're in a dark place, and this, that's why I figured maybe these stories are going to really help someone. That's cool. I mean, because you can't see that. I mean, maybe you had some thought about it going in, but after you hear these stories, you're, oh man, so-and-so went through this and they went through this, and just amazing.
Yeah.
So that's cool that now you get to, share it with the world.
Yeah, I think as artists in general, whether you're a skateboarder, a tattooer, a photographer, a painter, anything, fill in the blank. I mean, it's a vague term, art, but we're so hard on ourselves. I think we're our biggest critics, and I'm sure that you listen to some of your podcasts back and, hate the way you sound, or I should have asked this question, or I should have asked that question. And so I think through the book, at least people can sort of compare experiences, or maybe it'll help build someone's confidence to do something. And, at the end of the day, if people buy the book and just enjoy it, then that's great. But if someone learns something from it, I mean, that's huge. So I would be really excited to hear from people if that was the case. So.
Yeah, no, yeah, creating anything, I, in my spare time or when I'm feeling inspired, I also try to write. I went to film school and got a screenwriting degree, but, and that's a whole other, combination of writing, feeling confident to share it to the public, or just even friends and hearing like, oh, this is okay, or it sucks, or it's great, so I could relate on that front where you said it's, you're always doubting, and that's part of life, right? You have to move on and,
yeah, especially nowadays, as soon as you publish something, it's out there. So you want to make sure it's great, and you're putting out your best work at all times. So I hear you.
Yeah. So, I probably got a couple more questions for you, but I wanted to get the key nuggets too. So this book is slated is for an October release. Is that still correct?
Yeah, so we're looking at October 14th is the date. That's just to give us a little bit of buffer of time. We're having the book printed right now. It's just, things are taking a while, which should be expected, I suppose. But we're going to do the first release party in Los Angeles at Marriage Skate Shop. It's a newer shop in Echo Park.
Nice.
It's great. So it's going to be super fun to have there. We'll get some drinks and a food truck and just kind of hang out. Hopefully all the guys from the book can show up and get kids pumped up and say hey and everything. So we're going to do another release at another skate shop, kind of like my hometown skate shop in Indianapolis, minus skate shop.
Okay.
So we're going to try to do one there in Indy. And then I'm looking to do one in New York. I'm kind of trying to figure that out right now, sort of as we speak. So we could do, just a few. And then the books will obviously be available for pre-order and through the web store and stuff like that, which we'll announce that stuff on the page closer to when we have it all set up.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, put me down for a copy, man. I can't wait to hear about it. I'll definitely be hyping it up and pumping it up for you.
I love it. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear it's, one of multiple ones. And I'm sure you guys will just, as long as you're feeling inspired and pumped and you're having great interviews, you're just going to keep these going for as long as you guys want, right?
Yeah, that's the plan. We got a lot of cool names coming up. I'm excited to kind of unveil for volume 2. So I think people are going to be extra pumped. So
that's true. I'm sure. I mean, just through basic networking, you're gonna talk to, say, an Eric Dress, and you say, you know what, you should talk to this guy or gal, or hey, you should talk to, and then you probably have a nice list growing for potentials, right?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, just even Eric's a perfect example. I left that interview and he was texting me within an hour being like, oh, I totally forgot, you should hit up this guy. And here's Jim Muir's phone number. And I was like, Jim Muir, what? And he was like, that dude was getting tattooed before everybody. Just text him, tell him I told you, And I'm like, man, this is wild. This is, so everyone I talk to has got 5 more people that I should hit up. So it's definitely an open-ended conversation, and it's a long story to tell. So I think we'll keep going as long as it feels natural.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you're going to get even more after the book is out, and people are going to rereading it, and they're like, oh, I'd love to talk to Ben, or blah, blah, blah. I have a story to tell, or, there'll be a lot of people coming to you as well, instead of just, getting numbers from individuals.
Yeah, totally. That's the plan and the hope.
So good. So I got one more for you, man.
Yeah.
And and from the pictures I've seen of you, and just talking to you today, I noticed you've got obviously a lot of tattoos. But is it true that you actually hate getting tattoos?
Man, it's very true. I'll do it. but I got to get myself super pumped up. It's like I'm going to skate a big rail or something. I got to pump myself up real good. But I think tattooers hate getting tattooed because we get all the easy spots off the list quick, right? The arms and the legs.
Yeah.
And then we end up with armpits and feet and all the stuff that we know sucks. So I go through phases where I'll get tattooed more regularly, but yeah, I still got spots left and I gotta get around to it. But I originally had the idea of maybe doing these interviews, while getting tattooed by some of these people. And I was like, man, my questions are going to be so crazy if I'm trying to focus on getting through the tattoo and talking to them. So I decided to maybe put a pin in that. But yeah, it's not fun, man. But the first few are always easy because you're excited to get them, but they're getting easier for sure.
Yeah, I think that's probably honestly part of the reason why I haven't gotten one too is on my pain thread. I'm such a wimp when it comes to pain. So I'm like, dude, I'd hate to go into it and be like, I'll be that one guy like, you know what? Hey, we'll just leave it like this. This is good. It makes no sense. Here's my tattoo. But so I'm a wimp like that too. But it makes sense. Like those key spots, like.
Yeah, they're rough, man. So, or if I'm hurt from skating, maybe I'll get tattooed because I gotta, once you get a big tattoo, you don't want to go skate immediately after that. You don't want to, be falling on it or whatever. So
yeah, exactly. And as you know, I mean, as we get older, these falls hurt more and the recovery time gets longer, and
it's the worst. Getting tattooed sucks way more as you get older, and skating hurts more when you get older. So I don't know what the correlation is there, but yeah.
Exactly. Cool, man. So where can like anyone listening find you? What's the best way to get in touch with you? Social media, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So my main Instagram that I use for all things tattooing is just at Ben McQueen Tattoo. And then for everything for the book, it's just at Let It Kill You Book. So I try to post a little bit on both, but for all the book stuff, the announcements for the parties and volume 2 and pre-order information and all that stuff, just make sure you're following Let It Kill You Book.
Cool. Excellent, dude. It's been a pleasure, dude. I mean, I know this book's going to be a success, volume 1 of ... many more, but I'll be keeping an eye too, but as it gets closer, keep me in the loop. If you got any places that's going to have a, you want me to plug for you, I'm more than happy to spread the love, spread the word.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you having me on, and I'll definitely be keeping you in the loop for sure.
Appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Later, man.
Later, bud.